In my experiences as a man of God, I have discerned and deciphered that a lot of Christians, they rather remember other Christians from their past. I'm not talking about their sinful past. I'm talking about like when God's people, when they've had like issues with other Christians, they've like how do I say it? Like if there's this one person who went to some church and they were somewhat different from everybody. They, like if they were weird, or if they had a hard time getting along with other people, or they were just different from everyone else in that church. I mean, we're all different, but I mean, I'm just saying that there's, in every church, or at least 9 out of 10 churches, there's at least one person who is totally different from the rest of the congregation, or the rest of the group of people, however way you want to put it. They're somewhat different. In other words, the kind of differences they have is what everyone seems to notice, to recognize, to be able to point out. And like if there's any of God's people out there who like who are not like all that mentally or emotionally stable, or like if they've had a hard time getting along with certain people, or a lot of people, or they're just different in a way where there's just things about them where most people had a hard time agreeing with, or if there's just one person who seems to be totally misunderstood and totally misjudged and just seen so differently. Yeah, that's the words I'm looking for. And then let's say that person leaves that church or that group of Christians, and for a few years, or they come back several years later, and then most people in that church who knew that person, you know, they either have little to do with them or nothing to do with them at all. They kind of give them a mean look, or they just give them a look like where they're just not happy to see that person, or they try to contact that person on Facebook or Instagram, and like they send them a friend request, or even just a message, if not both, and that other person, you know, has nothing to do with them. Well, it's because they're dwelling on that person's past. All I have to say is Jesus said, "If any one of you is without sin, cast the first stone." And the Bible also says that we are to be looking at not only God's people, but everyone in this world through the eyes of God, and not through the eyes of this world, and not through the eyes of the flesh. And the Bible says that we're to treat everyone equally. The Bible also says we're not to dwell on the past. There's another one. There's another hint for you. And I know that none of God's people are perfect. I'm not perfect. Ain't nobody perfect. Only Jesus was perfect. But we're still supposed to be living by the prime examples of Jesus Christ. We're to be Christ-like. We can't be Jesus, but we're to be like Jesus. We're to be like God. And yeah, not to be dwelling on the past. We're supposed to put on the mind of Christ. We're not supposed to be dwelling on the past, you know, remembering one of God's people for the kind of person that they were years ago. Like if you thought that person was weird or awkward, or you didn't get along with them, or you saw how they didn't get along with very many people. Let's say they were just the most misunderstood person. It's just something about them, you know, their personality, their mentality. And then, you know, years later you see them in person, or they try to contact you on Facebook or Instagram, and you have nothing to do with you have either little to do with that person or nothing to do with them at all, because you remember their past. Again, do not dwell on the past. That's an act of the fleshly spirit. That's what Satan wants you to do, and that sort of thing is of a religious system. And this video, just talking the top off my head, and anyone who wants to point that out, you know, let God point out your faults and flaws and mistakes, for I'm not perfect, and ain't nobody any better than me. Now, going back some, if anyone wants to accuse me saying like if I'm being judgmental or do I not judge, well, I can't say that I don't judge anybody, I mean, I try not to judge anyone. If there's anyone I knew in the past who maybe I had some issues with, in a certain church, I'm not gonna, I'm not going to, if I ever see that person, at a church I go to, or I visit that church, or they contact me online, I'm not going to disregard them or be like, oh, I knew the kind of person you were in the past. Guess what, people? Anyone that, you thought, if you're going to do that with somebody, again, you're judging them for their past. Quit judging. Yeah, I'm going to get loud. Because God's people can be so judgmental. Just like this one church I went to, the pastor was so right. Christians could be some of the most judgmental people in the world. And, whenever you see somebody who you didn't get along with, or you thought was weird or awkward, or just the most different person out of everyone at the church you went to, you have no right to pass judgment on them. Who are you to judge? And if you're without sin, then cast the first stone at that person. Because guess what? Only Jesus, he was the only one who was without sin. And even he didn't condemn anybody. So you have no right to dwell on that person's past. You have no right to look at that person any differently than the way you see everyone else. We're not to seclude or exclude anyone else. Well, thanks for watching, and maybe bits and pieces, maybe this video, people can use this video in sermons. I don't know. But the best advice I can give God's people. Thanks for watching, and God bless.